What a difference a day can make. On January 10th, 1999, at Cabaret Sauvage in Paris, Souad Massi, a young Algerian artist completely unknown, made her singing debut. She was a sensation, a revelation. Paris knows and enjoys the talents of many Algerian musicians. But here was someone different, not another pop diva, but an artist comfortable with the sounds of Leonard Cohen, the Buena Vista Social Club, and Otis Redding, as well as Algerian music. 5 years later, now based in Paris, with 2 records in the world market, she's making her first tour of the US. Canape takes a close look at a rising star.
The name of the second album is Dead, means my heart is broken, my heart broken. And dans cet album, j'ai plein de chansons qui parlent surtout de nostalgie. Comme j'ai vécu pendant 4 ans en France, ça m'a inspiré à écrire ces chansons-là qui parlent de nostalgie. And I have a different kind of music in this album. You can find flamenco, Arabo-Andalus, African music, and classical music too. So I grew up in a family who was listening to traditional Algerian music, Shabi, for example, and pop and rhythm and blues music. So, me, I was listening to pop, rock music, folk, Arabic music. How is it, the life of musician in Algeria? It wasn't easy because the situation in Algeria is c'est un déséquilibre. On n'est pas stable. Je ne sais pas comment dire en anglais stable. Il n'y a pas de stabilité. Et on n'a pas des moyens pour travailler. Mais ça dépend des artistes, parce qu'il y a des artistes qui travaillent dans les cabarets et tout, ça va pour eux. Mais pour nous, ceux qui veulent faire du rock ou de la musique moderne, on a du mal à trouver un studio, on a du mal à acheter du matériel. Et par respect à tous les artistes qui se battent, qui sont morts aussi pour leur engagement. Et moi, j'ai pas de bagage pour défendre des causes. J'essaye à ma façon, mais j'ai beaucoup de chansons d'amour, j'ai des chansons où des gens, quand ils écoutent cette musique, peuvent s'amuser dessus, mais je n'ai pas spécialement des chansons très, très engagées. Quand on parle de paix, je pense que c'est la responsabilité de tout le monde de défendre la paix.
stories breed stories. For French writer Marie Calter, as for millions of Jews, Christians, Muslims, and others around the world, the books of the Old Testament hold some of the greatest stories ever told, tales that have no end of possible implications. In Sarah, the first novel in a trilogy about biblical women, author Alter explores what might have been the life of Abraham's wife. In his version, she is the daughter of a noble family in Sumer. Her life with Abraham takes her far away from the comforts of her earlier life and into the heart of events that shape three major world faiths. The energetic writer chats with Canape about making the ancient world a place that we recognize as a beginning ground for our world.
The Bible, I know it very well. This is a fantastic book. Strong as Shakespeare. Everything you have Romeo Juliet and Macbeth and Hamlet and Othello, all of them in only one book. And then I found out that something is wrong in the book, because you have a lot women personage, but you don't listen their voices. They are not talking. What were the feelings of Sarah when Abraham left her in the bed of Pharaoh in Egypt? What happened? She was a Sumerian. She knew the alphabet. The Sumerians invented the first alphabet. So where are the letters of Sarah? So I put myself in her body, in her soul, in her brain, and I tried to describe all the story with Abraham, with the raconter, with God, but she is telling the story. For sure, it was difficult to write about all the women of the Old Testament, and then from the New Testament, the Quran. I choose three of them. Why? Because they marked the most important, in my opinion, moments of the human civilization. First one, the invention of God one, the first abstraction in the world, the concept of God, the concept of justice, because if you have one God, we are equal in front of him. This is a fantastic idea, an invention. This is Sarah. The second is Tzipporah. Tzipporah is the wife of Moses. The first law, the Ten Commandments, first law in the history of the humanity. And the concept of freedom. What means freedom? Can you be free in a world what is not free? Is freedom invented only for one people, for Jewish people? And here, Moses' wife, Tzipporah, who is black, played an extraordinary role. Extraordinary, because she showed him, look, I am a black woman, I am with you, I am pushing you. So he discovered that the law had to be accepted from all the people around the world. This is the first idea of universalism. And the third one, Lila. Lila is the sister of Ezra, 400 years before Jesus Christ. The Jews are coming back from Babylon to Israel, the first Zionist movement in the world. And Ezra understood that a country, a state, is important, but no states who are protected against invasions forever. No one. So he was thinking, together with her sister Lila, what can be the permanency, the expression of the permanency of a civilization, of moral. And he invented the book, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, which became the first book, the Bible, Biblos, Bible book. I like America because this is maybe the only one modern country in the world. This means that the behavior to the time is very special. It's going very fast. This is not like Proust told us in France, you have give the time to the time. Here they have no time. I remember I published here a book. This was a fantastic bestseller. I sold here millions of copies, the Book of Abraham, the history of one Jewish family, my own, for 2,000 years. A year later I was here and people are saying, do I know you? So I wanted to say to the Americans, maybe now you will know me.
Some artists succeed, others fail. Few change the way we view an art form. Even the detractors of Jean-Luc Godard, who are as legion as his admirers, admit that he is quite simply one of the seminal directors in the history of cinema. From his early New Wave film noir masterpiece, Breathless, to his recent elegiac contemplations on the history of Western art, Godard creates works that both shock by violating accepted artistic norms and inspire awe for their beauty. Biographer and occasional producer for Godard, Colin McCabe, describes the demands of writing about a living master whose work continues to take new directions.
The book comes out of a long period of working with Godard. He's a very extraordinary man. I say in the book that both Bernardo Bertolucci and Serge Daney, the first time they met him, they vomited. He's an extraordinarily strong, powerful psychic presence. I mean, he's a very solitary guy, but also his complete commitment to the image. Nobody has been so in love or so hated the image in the 20th century. The great excitement of the book for me was really reading and learning about these cinema clubs in Paris just post-1945. I mean, you really do feel that that must have been a dream, to go along to hear Eric Romer at one cine club, to go and hear André Bazin at another, and then you had this mad 16-year-old François Truffaut running his own, which he called the Circle of Cinemaniacs. There's a moment when nobody pays any attention to cinema, and yet you have these few people using the full resources of French intellectual and cultural life beginning to think about the cinema.
Oui, mais est-ce que penser et parler, c'est pareil?
Je le crois, je le crois. C'était dit dans Platon, remarquez. C'est une vieille idée. Mais je crois qu'on ne peut pas distinguer dans la pensée ce qui serait la pensée et les mots pour l'exprimer. Analyser la conscience, vous n'arriverez pas à saisir, autrement que par des mots, un moment de pensée.
Parler alors, c'est un peu risqué de mentir.
I think the first stage is to remember that he was a film critic. Godard, for the first 10 years of his film activity, he was writing. So when he shot his first film at 30 in 1960, he was steeped in the cinema, probably more than anybody has ever been.
Tu connais William Faulkner?
Non, qui est-ce? Tu as couché avec lui?
Mais non, mon coco.
Alors je me fous de lui.
When he shot Breathless in 1960, they screened it and it was 2 hours, 15 minutes long, and they had to cut it down. So they had counter shots where there wasn't the counter shot. They had cuts where there wasn't any continuity. They basically invented a new way of cutting films. And it's a way which was developed in British advertisements, and is now every Hollywood film you see is edited like that. So whatever you think about Godard, he will always be the guy who ended classical editing. And then Godard completely fell out of love with the cinema. Having been in love with the cinema, he fell out of love. And he fell out of love at the same moment as 1968, and he became an absolute committed political militant, with the difference that the whole of his political militancy was in questioning the order of the image. And he made a series of films which are unwatchable. And then slowly he came back to the cinema. And in 1979 he made a film with Isabelle Huppert, with Nathalie Baye, with Jacques Dutronc, the three biggest stars of the French cinema, in which he came back and began reflecting on his own life. And he made a series of films which I think are amongst the greatest films ever made: Passion, First Name Carmen, Hail Mary. And by now he'd set himself up in a little Swiss village with a complete atelier with his companion Anne-Marie Miéville. And for the last 20 years, he's been in a position which almost no filmmaker, not even Spielberg, is. He can film any day he wants. He'll do an ad, he'll do a corporate video. If you come and pay him the money, he'll do whatever you ask. He'll make some films. He is the only director that I am aware of who got so fed up with the cinema, who got so fed up with the ways in which stories were developed, the ways in which stars were sold, that he actually managed to produce a kind of Swiss watchmaker's workshop where he makes his own films. And my own feeling about those films is they are amongst the greatest art made in the 20th century. If you sit there thinking, what's that film, what's that painting, you'll be lost. If you just watch it, it's amongst the most beautiful pieces of audio-visual work ever created.
Any Francophile knows that July 14th, le 14 juillet, is the French national holiday. History buffs know its connection to the French Revolution. But what is the inside story? Farewell, My Queen, the new novel by distinguished researcher Chantal Thomas, tells the story from within. Madame Agathe Laborde, a member of Marie Antoinette's inner circle, narrates the events in Versailles in the days following the fall of the Bastille. The author talks with Canape about the challenges of recreating a lost world in all its opulence and contradictions.
J'ai eu beaucoup de temps pour trouver vraiment la structure du livre, et ce que j'avais du mal à trouver, c'était la voix qui porterait le récit. Et d'avoir choisi une lectrice, c'est-à-dire quelqu'un qui n'avait pas de rôle politique à la cour, mais qui était un peu en retrait, qui vivait dans les livres et dans l'adulation de la reine, ça m'a permis de me mettre à une place, imaginairement, qui est une place où je peux me rêver et me voir vivre. Et donc elle est quelqu'un qui... Donc c'est très précisément, c'est 3 jours à Versailles, le 14, 15 et 16 juillet, donc après la prise de la Bastille, et ils sont vus du point de vue de la cour, et donc c'est un récit de ces 3 jours qui disent comment la prise de la Bastille a été d'abord reçue à Versailles, ça met beaucoup de temps même pour l'accepter, et ensuite qu'est-ce qui se passe pendant quelques jours, les quelques jours pendant lesquels la cour se décide à abandonner la reine, et en particulier c'est tout le clan de Madame de Polignac qui s'en va, et donc c'est un peu l'abandon, ça raconte l'abandon d'un château, et l'effondrement d'un univers en 3 jours. Les personnages dans ce livre, bien sûr, c'est celle qui raconte l'histoire, Agathe Laborde, Marie-Antoinette, bien sûr, et sa favorite, Madame de Polignac, mais un autre personnage, peut-être le personnage central, c'est Versailles. Versailles m'est vraiment apparu petit à petit comme un autre monde. Madame de Sévigné disait ce pays-ci, c'était une expression d'époque, c'était un autre pays, c'était un pays à l'intérieur de la France. Et c'était un pays d'une splendeur inimaginable, mais aussi dans un degré de crasse, des notions d'hygiène folles pour nous. Mais ce qui m'a donné envie d'écrire le livre, c'est la façon dont Marie-Antoinette est toujours vue ou bien comme une reine frivole et sans profondeur, ou bien comme une héroïne martyre. Et ce que j'ai voulu vraiment montrer là, c'est comment quelqu'un peut changer radicalement. Quelqu'un peut, face à un malheur plus grand qu'elle, se révéler aussi beaucoup plus grande qu'elle n'était. Elle est vraiment la première femme, la première reine qui a habité Versailles et qui a voulu que, puisque Versailles ne pouvait pas lui ressembler, ce serait le petit Trianon. Et je me souviens, une fois, je me promenais, c'était la tombée du jour, et je suis passée près de Trianon, justement, près de la maison d'un gardien, et les grilles allaient fermer. Et il avait plu, il y avait quelque chose de très... un senteur de feuilles incroyable, et à ces senteurs de feuilles s'est mêlée l'odeur du dîner que le gardien était en train de préparer, une odeur de soupe. Et j'ai vu le lit qu'il étendait pour sa nuit. Et tout d'un coup, j'ai tout à fait compris cette vie aussi qui était toujours prise avec le regard des autres. Et justement, dans la galerie des glaces, la nuit, les gardiens étendaient des lits de camp et dormaient là. Et une des reines précédentes, peut-être c'était Marie Lexinska, s'était plainte du caractère un petit peu indécent du corps de ces hommes endormis dans la galerie des glaces. Donc, vous voyez, ça c'est cette partie que j'ai eu beaucoup de mal à saisir, au fond, à la saisir comme une vie virtuelle de moi-même, Versailles comme un prolongement de ma propre vie, que ce soit une sorte d'évidence respiratoire presque. Ça a été vraiment le plus long, beaucoup plus long que, au fond, réellement beaucoup plus long que les recherches dans les livres.
What happens if you pick the wrong door? In Patrice Lecomte's new film, Intimate Strangers, Anna, played by the gifted Sandrine Bonner, arrives at a Paris apartment building for a first visit with a psychiatrist. By mistake, she enters the office of a tax attorney, played by well-known actor Fabrice Lucchini, who fails to correct her error. The trap is set for both to have more complications in lives seeking greater simplicity. The director, whose previous films include Monsieur Hir, Girl on the Bridge, and Man on the Train, chats with Canape about the quirks of modern life.
So the beginning of this movie is very, very simple. I can tell you, a woman who has some personal problems decides to visit a psychoanalyst. But she is wrong, and in the corridor she is wrong with the way, and she knocks at a wrong door. Behind this door, it's not a psychoanalyst, it's who? When Jérôme Tonnerre proposed to me the 21st pages of the script, it was only this situation. And he proposed to me he said to me, if you like it, we can invent the following of the script together, and we did it.
Now, director Patrice Lecomte presents the story of two lonely people who never should have met. She mistook him for a therapist. He didn't have the heart to tell her. Now, the more secrets she reveals, the more he wants to hear. One is playing a seductive game. The other is playing along.
The lesson, as you say, is to change yourself. You have to live with your arms open and not closed. And I'm more and more preoccupied about the increase of the loneliness with people working on internet, for example, and closing their eyes, their arms, their heart too. And the loneliness of people in the modern world is something very... I'm afraid about it.
Ce soir-là, je voulais sortir la voiture du garage. Une boîte automatique, vous savez?
Je connais rien du tout.
Fausse manœuvre. Je suis partie d'un coup en marche arrière. Et j'ai pas vu que mon mari était là, caché dans le noir.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'il faisait caché dans le noir?
C'était un petit jeu entre nous. J'ai entendu son cri, trop tard. Sa jambe gauche écrasée contre le mur. Je l'ai rendu infirme.
And at the beginning of the shooting, Fabrice was afraid because he said to me, "But I don't act at all. I'm sure to be boring if I don't if I do nothing, you know." And I said, "Trust me, Fabrice. I'm sure you are perfect. It's new for you, maybe, but you are not boring at all."
C'est depuis ça, depuis l'accident, qui me touche plus. D'après lui, un autre homme, ce serait la solution pour éveiller le désir.
C'est dangereux de jouer à ça. Si vous tombiez amoureuse...
De qui?
De cet autre homme.
Faudra déjà que je le rencontre.
My dream, my secret dream, but I know it's impossible, it's a dream, it's to make movies and never speak about it.
From Paramount Classics and award-winning director Patrice Leconte, Sandrine Bonnaire, Fabrice Lucchini. In the unlikely romance the New York Times is calling a sophisticated fairy tale. Sometimes, behind the wrong door, you can find the right stranger. Intimate Strangers.